about my favorite sermon. I think I've talked about a lot of things in my previous videos. I've talked about legal issues in the country. I've talked about current affairs. I've talked about psychological issues and overcoming them. But I think this time I'm going to be talking to you about my spirituality. And this video is sponsored by my first ever Bible. This is my first ever Bible, grade 1 vibes. And yeah, my mother bought me this Bible a very long time ago. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the vid. Yeah, so in church one day, there was a pastor, and the pastor was talking about the 3 different types of faiths. How there's the faith that touches the emotions, faith that touches the mind, and then faith that touches the heart, right? And in these 3 different types of faiths, he shows why people don't fully understand how God works because of how their faith is circumstantial, and it depends on the circumstance or the situation that they might be in. So the first type of faith, the faith that touches emotions, this is an easy faith to describe. It's a faith where you apply your spiritual principles when you feel good, when you feel like it, you then apply faith, you then believe in God, or even when things excuse me, are going well, that's when you believe in God. The faith that touches the emotions, it's emotionally based. And I'll give you an example of the faith that touches the emotions. Is that there's a situation once where there was this pastor. He had a big church, right? And he was big on the messages, greater is he that is in you than the man in the world. Greater is he, the one that is in you, yeah, you can tell that I need to touch up on my Bible reading. But anyway, greater is he who is in you than the man that is in the world. You can probably say it better than me. But he kept on saying that to people. Whenever people in his church were going through things, he would always say that to them. Greater is he who is in you than the man that is in the world, right? And there was a situation once where his daughter had passed away, right? And like the pastor was very upset, and even in his sermon, you could tell that, he had been hurt. His daughter had just died. And one of the congregants then stood up and talked to the pastor, and they said, Mfundisi, just always remember that greater is he that is in you than the man that is in the world, right? And the pastor saw at that guy same time. And the reason why he saw at that guy is that it was easy for him to say those uplifting statements or those passages or whatever, to say greater is he that is in you than the man that is in the world, because it's the circumstance was good, right? But as soon as a storm came or a challenge that he had, it was then hard for him to stick on that principle. And that is the faith that touches the emotions. It's an emotional faith, emotional based. When you constantly swayed by your emotions, which isn't good. The second one, the faith that touches the mind, the faith that touches the heart, kind of coincides, and I'll say it together. Basically, is that there's a situation where there's a woman who had a brain tumor, and she came to church with a brain tumor. If you remember going to church, like they would always have this thing where they'd call people up to the front, and they'd be like, they'll pray for them, they'd lay hands on them, and all those types of things. So they called up this woman, and they did what they always do, they laid hands on her and they prayed on her and whatnot, and that type of thing. And and she, whenever she came to church, she always would go up because she always had this brain tumor on her head one day. So on one Saturday, she made a very powerful decision as to, she went to church, and instead of looking all depressed and whatnot, she got dressed, and she, instead of going up to get prayer this time, she went up to tell a testimony, right? And now the biggest issue was that her testimony that she was going to tell was what God was about to do and not what God had done, all right? And she stood up and she told the church or the pastors that, like, even with this brain tumor, God has already healed me. God has already delivered. By his stripes, I'm healed from every sickness and disease, right? And everyone was looking at her like she's crazy. And everyone did look at her like she's crazy. But she was able to, she had the faith that touches the heart instead of the faith that touches the mind. The faith that touches the mind means that when you see it working out, so like when you're applying for the job and then you're getting called for the interview, then you're like, by God, I'm going to get this job because you can see it. But the faith that touches the hearts is that I don't even have a degree, but I don't even have anything, but I want to be an accountant. I want to be a lawyer. I want to start this business, even though I don't have anything. That's the faith that touches the heart, where you trust God to handle it, you know? Even there's that great saying, let go and let God. And that's the faith that she had, where she still had the tumor. The doctor was still telling her that it was still bad, I don't know, deadly or whatever. But she had the faith that touches the heart. She believed in her heart that the promises that God made, as I'm saying, that by her stripes, I'm healed from every sickness and disease. And I think even with this COVID thing, with any job situation that you have, that you need to apply the faith that touches the heart. Meaning that even if you don't see how you're going to get through something or how you can even tackle something, you have to be able to have faith and believe in God, you know. There's a lot of pastors that talk about it. I think his name is Joel Osteen, where he always talks about turning it over to Jesus, whatever it may be, turning it over to Jesus and letting him handle it instead of you dealing with it. And what that means is not just, you know, quitting, you know, because a lot of people deal with things. The 50 Cent always says this. A lot of people deal with things by not dealing with things. So they say, I have this debt issue, I'm just going to ignore it, right? Instead of saying that I have this debt issue, how can I now pay it? How can I now think? Sort of avoiding the calls from the debt collectors. What arrangement can I get into with them, right? And now you're trusting in God that they won't repossess anything or all those types of things, that they will see the light and they'll see that you making an effort to make the payments, right? Because you have faith, instead of just not dealing with something and saying that no, God will handle it. No, you have to take the initiative and deal with something. So this YouTube video, very short. I just want people to remember that it's a very simple principle, that with faith, it has to be in your heart. You have to believe it in your heart at all times, no matter what's happening to you. I hope someone says amen there at the back.